Okay, good. Well, let's get started. Welcome. This is an odd time, certainly in our county and our country's history. But welcome to the County Commission meeting for April 6, 2020. We hope that this is, I heard someone say this morning, the new norm, and I don't accept that. I certainly don't expect this to be the new norm, and certainly hope it's not. But anyway, welcome. It's good to see the commissioners. We've not gotten to see each other very much lately, so it's you're looking well, and I hope you are doing well. And so we welcome those who are watching this live, and also those who will watch it later. So we're going to carry on just like this was a regular meeting. We've had conversations with our county attorney, JD's, on how we conduct these, and these have been vetted through all channels all the way up through the state. And so these are good hearings for us to have. And so in the interest of transparency, we wanted to continue to have these meetings and our county commission meetings and not put them off because the business of the county needs to push forward. So we'll go ahead and get started as we typically do. We'll begin with a couple things. We're going to have a prayer from our chaplain, Chaplain Taylor. Following that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, and Randy's going to provide a flag for us. So commissioners, if you'll join me, we'll get started.
I want to make sure I do not see Chaplain Taylor. I think he's dropped off. So I do apologize for that.
All right, we can wait.
All righty.
Oh yeah, how about you?
How long will I go to jail if I stand in for him?
Yeah, let's see if I can get him by
Ready?
Hey, Chaplain Taylor. Hey, it's Greg. Do you want to go ahead and do the prayer
Yes,
for us?
sir.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Father, I come to you today. This day, the commission meet today, praying amidst the trials that we're going through, Lord, in Rowan County, across this nation. Pray you give them the wisdom they need today. Bless them in a special way today. Thank you for this privilege we have today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Taylor. All right. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. All right. We've got a couple of additions to make to the agenda. We're going to put them on the regular agenda as one is to have a conversation about long-term capital spending. We'll make that item 6A. Another one, this comes from Leslie, and that's about a conservation easement. That'll be 6B. And so does anyone else have any other additions or deletions? All right, if not, then a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Move.
All right,
Second.
we got Craig motion and Jim second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, then the minutes for March 16th have been provided. So do we have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
So moved.
All right, Craig and Jim, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, then the consent agenda has been provided for us. You've had a chance to look through that. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Judy, a motion. Who's second?
Second. Me.
Craig, second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 And then I believe we don't have any public comment. Just for the general public, we've had an email address that's been set up for public comment. We've not received anything from that, so we'll move on. And we'll move to item number 3, public hearing for ground-mounted solar energy system moratorium extension. And Ed Muir will be presenting. Ed? Nope.
How about now?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, great. It's good to see everyone. The 6-month moratorium affecting new or expansions to any ground-mounted solar energy systems that have a panel area greater than 6,000 square feet will expire tomorrow. Considering the feedback the commission received on the proposed text amendments at its March 2nd meeting, the commission stated its intention was to extend the moratorium by at least another 4 months. And since that time, we've had a lot of changes here locally as well as nationally. And I think based on the current state of affairs, staff has prepared a moratorium extension ordinance that has the options of a 4, 5, or 6-month duration. That draft ordinance should be included in your packets, and I'll be glad to answer any questions from the commission about its content.
Ed, can we extend it past the next 6 months if we so see that that's what we need to do that's reasonable?
I think you probably can. We're sort of in new territory just with this type of meeting anyway, and I think one of the benefits that we have in extending this moratorium as it is now is that you have citizens as well as representatives in the solar industry that are telling the commission to take an extended look at what has been done to date. So in the event that we cannot meet as a planning board and get any material together for the board, I think it would be highly likely and reasonable that the moratorium could be extended once again. I hope that's not the case, but I think that's a bridge we can cross when we get to it.
Have you had any conversations about anybody wanting to come and have another solar farm here?
Not, well, the way the moratorium is structured, we will not accept any new applications. With that being said, I think based on several comments from the public and the interest from a couple of the solar industry folks, I think they do have applications that they're ready to submit either to the Utilities Commission for potential sites or to the county for consideration. But at this point, I don't know where those would be.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion that we extend the moratorium for another 6 months.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Judy and well, let's do this. Let's
You
do
gotta
this
have a public hearing. don't we? Yeah.
So to real quickly bring folks back to where we are on this, we had a moratorium. The planning board took this through the planning board, and they came with a series of recommendations that came back to us. We had some questions about that and just felt like it would be best to send it back to planning board, answer some questions and make some adjustments. And so this is what we're doing, is we're going to give them some more time to work on this. So what we're doing is extending an existing moratorium by another 6 months. In order to do that, technically, we need to have another public hearing by law. And so again, working through our attorney and also with up through the state, it is perfectly acceptable for us. We have received some letters. Ed, maybe you could enter those into the record. We have received some letters from some folks on our website dedicated to this issue that are acceptable as public comment. So Ed, let me turn that over to you. Well, first what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open the floor for a couple public comment, and then Ed, I'll turn it over to you to let us know what you've received.
Okay, thank you.
And given that you've opened it for public comment, if anyone that's called in wants to raise their hand for attending, we'll make note of that.
Okay.
Just a comment about my motion. I just really believe with Craig that because of the situation we're in with the pandemic, that if we put it out 6 months, hopefully we'll be able to do it if the pandemic lasts until the end of August, as some are predicting. If we can get at it sooner, then we can do that.
Good. Well, we'll open the floor now for public comment. And Ed Muir, you have a few that you'd like to enter into the record?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So given the likelihood that attendance at this meeting would be limited at best, we had put together an email account on March 25th and sent notice to a lot of the folks who have shown interest along the way in this topic. And we told them that they could respond or provide comments by noon today. And we received 6 emails from folks. And I would tell you that each of these should be entered into the record by the clerk as if this citizen was in attendance and spoke. I believe that Carolyn had emailed these to your attention earlier today in advance of the meeting. But what I would like to do is just very generally categorize what I saw those emails were. 5 supported the moratorium extension, and those were received from Rebecca Cheatham of Bird's Eye Renewable Energy, Marie Howell, who was a local citizen, Mark DePango from First Solar, Jackie and Kathy Webb, who are Rowan County citizens, and also Kathy Webb, another Rowan County citizen. There was a 6th email from Laura Crutchcow, who I believe lives in Rowan County as well. And she didn't really address the moratorium, but she stated that she was in favor of standards for decommissioning, soil testing, and a size limitation on the facilities. Again, their comments or their emails should be entered into the record as if they actually appeared in front of the board and spoke.
All right, we'll do so, Carolyn. Just make a note of that. If there's nothing else, then we'll close the floor to public comment. And Judy, if you'd like to make a motion to extend the moratorium for 6 months, that'd be appropriate. All right, go ahead, Judy, and make your motion again to extend.
Oh, okay. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we extend the moratorium for ground-mounted solar farms for 6 months.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Craig, second. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ed, Jay, are we okay? Ed, we're good?
Yes, we're good. We're good.
Ed or Jay, look out behind you. There's a buffalo. All right, let's move on. County Manager Church, next item number 4, public hearing for proposed text amendments to Rowan County Personnel Ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed revision to the Rowan County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, Personnel, Division 7, Section 2138, Military Leave. This pertains to an increase in the number of hours granted for military training leave. And I think this is something that Commissioner Caskey asked that we work on.
Yeah, Mike, do you want to give us some background on this?
Yeah, thank you. So this is something that, first let me say that this won't affect me at all because I don't get military leave from Rowan County. So I just want to have that out there. But being, I was thinking as I was going in the Guard for a month, some of the issues around having military days. For me, it's kind of odd looking at myself here. Oops. So so what the issue, I think all of you received an email and it sort of looked at what some other counties are doing, and we're in line with some of the counties. Some of the counties have more days, but what happens is, and I think it's 5 or 6 people that we have in the county that are member of the Guard and Reserves. If you can be off that day, the days that you have drill. So most people, if you have Monday through Friday jobs, it doesn't really affect folks too much. They just work Monday through Friday, do their drills on the weekend, and come back to work. But a lot of our folks are in rotating shifts, different days. I know some of them are EMS, some of them are deputies. And what happens is you end up using sometimes you have to use some of your vacation days, or you have to move your days around. You end up working 10 or 12 days in a row trying to get it all straightened out. So basically what I've talked to each of you individually about, I know, is taking our days, which is we have 10 days a year right now that we provide. And so they can use those whenever they need them. So if they want to use them during the month, so they don't have to take vacation days, if they're working those weekends, they can use them then, or they can use them in the summertime or whatever time of year they do their training. An example that I like to give is me personally. When I work weekends and I have a Saturday, Sunday drill and I work third shift, I'd have to work all night and then get off early and go to drill all day, then go home, sleep, and get up and go drill the next day. And then maybe be off that Sunday night. So if it's bad for the employee, for the soldier to work all night and go to drill all day and then be off the next night and then have drill Sunday and then go back to work Sunday night. So what this would do is provide some more relief for our employees, where they have a little bit more days they could use. So maybe they can use some of those days and not have to use up their vacation days, or change their schedules around. The number that I think we've came up with would go from 10 to 17, which I think is 2 more days than Gaston County. But the reason that the way that we came up with this number was there's 24 drills in a year, which is 2 a month. And then normally you go away for roughly 2 weeks during the summer or whenever during the year. And so that would be 1 per month, and one of the weeks during summer, which would be 17 days. Now, you really wouldn't limit it because you can use those days. They can use those days whenever works best for them. But I left for the month. I had brought 20 hours over from the previous year, and I used up my 80 hours, or my 2 weeks that I had this year. And so,
So you're out of vacation.
So I ended up using about 3 weeks of vacation because I make a lot less doing military than I do my normal job. So anyway, basically the idea is to give some more days to our, I said 5 or 6. I don't know the exact number of reservists and guards that we have, to help give them a little bit more relief, so they don't have to use their vacation days and moving their schedule around or trying to work all night and go to drill. I've seen people, not from our county, but a police officer from other counties trying to work Friday night, go to drill Saturday, go back to work Saturday night, and come back to drill Sunday. So they really didn't sleep any for 3 days. So we don't really I like to keep us out of that, our employees out of that kind of thing. Cause like I said, once they use up all their days, then they've got to use vacation days or do not get paid. And sometimes they make a lot less doing drill than they do for their normal job.
So didn't you say that you kind of landed on 17 because in a lot of cases you'll end up with 34 days of reserve work, and this would provide half of those days?
Yeah, a typical year, you would average, they say 2 weeks a month. I mean, 2 days a month. Some months you do 3 days, and then some months you'll do 1 day, just depending on the training schedule. But basically, it averages up to 24 days of drill time, and then typically you'll go for your training, either your 2 weeks or whatever training you're doing, for about 2 weeks a year. So yeah, roughly 34 days a year.
Can I just make a comment? This is something that I've had experience with many years ago now, but the Army Reserves are a branch of the federal government. The National Guard is a branch of the state of North Carolina. And either of the units that Mike might be talking about can be called up and be first responders, as is happening now with the National Guard mainly, being on the front lines with helping to bring about law and order, helping to, in some cases nowadays, deliver medicines and doing things that are necessary. And I would like to just support the initiative that Mike's brought forward. This is a burden. A lot of folks have to use vacation days for this and don't have anything left for their family. And it's quite a commitment to the families altogether that are helping these folks to keep us safe in many, many different fashions.
Okay, so we will need to, again, conduct a public hearing on this item. So Aaron or Carolyn, did we get any comments, public comments that came in regarding this issue?
I haven't received any, and Randy just a couple of minutes ago put in the chat box for any attendees who wish to speak. Do any of you wish to speak during the public comment for this hearing, so I can make note ahead of time? Randy, have you received any comment?
I have not received any comments or raise of hand.
And Mr. Chairman, I did not receive any emails either.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and open the floor anyway for public comment, and we'll wait for a short while, say 30 seconds, to see if anyone that is watching this wants to come in through chat.
Randy, can you tell how many people are actually watching us live? Hello?
Yes, Ms. Glisman, sorry, I had to unmute. We do have about 8 individuals at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, well, we've not received any responses, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period. And Mike, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we change our military training days allotment for our employees to 17 days a year, and then that would be effective immediately.
Second. Go ahead, Craig.
Second.
All right, Craig, second. All right, is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mike and Jim. Item number 5, just real quickly, our litter report. From the dates of March 16th, I don't know if they're going to put any pictures up here, but from March 16th, which was a Monday, and ending Friday, March 27th, Rowan County workers picked up 10,285 pounds of debris on our roadsides. There's the second picture there has got a nice couch if anyone is in the market for a couch. And so just a whole lot of this stuff, obviously folks are just pulling off the road and working to unload their stuff on the side of the road. It makes me kind of wonder in this stay-at-home thing if folks will, if we'll have less litter on the road, hopefully, in these coming weeks. But that's our litter report, over 10,000 pounds in a little over a week. So again, please be responsible for your own garbage.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
in your report, I think it would be very positive
Uh-huh.
and something I would like to hear about the different organizations that have adopted areas and encouragement for other folks to do that.
A good idea. We'll be prepared for that on the next one.
Thank you.
Good thing. All right, item number 6, budget amendments have been provided for us. We have a motion to approve the budget amendments. Craig motion, and who's the second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, then we'll move into our added agenda items. Item 6A, which would be a discussion on long-term capital spending. Commissioner Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I wanted to put this on the agenda is I have had a lot of concerned citizens reach out to me and want to know what our plans are going to be as far as taking down large sums of money for improvements here in the county with what's going on with people losing their jobs and having to stay at home. And I think it would be good for the citizens to hear, you know, what our plans are or how we move forward from here. Because, and I'm not picking on the bond, but using the bond as an example, because that's been one of the big issues that people ask me about. The economy was an entirely different thing when this was passed as opposed to what it is today. And I have a lot of people with concerns that we're going to raise taxes and borrow this money and move forward in time soon. And I just would like for us to have an open discussion to kind of address some of these concerns that the citizens have and make sure they understand that I don't think there's anybody on this board that wants to move forward with some of the things that we had talked about as little as 30 days ago. So that's why I asked for the discussion.
Yeah, that's good. Any discussion from anyone on that?
I'd just like to say that what I have told my constituents is that being responsible right now with our tax dollars is probably the most critical it's ever been. Not that we don't do it all the time, but being that we've got people that are being laid off. I know the restaurant and hotel industry, it's just been devastating to them with what's going on. And, you know, it would give these people a little comfort to know that we're going to be prudent with the money at this point beyond where we have been in the past, and that we're not going to be reaching out for $45 million for RCCC and $60 million for RSSS and the plans for West End Plaza. They're just going to have to be put on hold. That until we see a full recovery of this economy, I don't think there's any commissioner on the board that would see justification of borrowing these big millions of dollars.
Well, I can't speak for the others. I agree with you. And just kind of to bring the public up to speed, I sent an email kind of on behalf of all the commissioners to Leslie, our finance director, and asked her if there were any items that we had already committed to technically that we would need to, as a group, discuss and possibly back away from. And the answer to that was no. So going forward, before we would have to borrow any of those big sums, it would require a vote. And so we've not passed the point of no return on anything because we haven't voted on any of that funding. Now, I think it's right to bring up the issue of the bond because we did just vote on that. I did have a conversation last week with President of Rowan Cabarrus Community College, Carol Spalding, and she was very understanding and said there is no way that they would expect that they would come before our board anytime soon to ask for those dollars. And in fact, she said the natural flow and schedule of this, even if this event had not happened, the natural flow of this would probably not occur for another 2 years anyway. So what they are going, or what they'd like to pursue, is to go on and begin to do their due diligence work on doing design. They were going to come to us and ask us for some upfront money that would be part of that $45 million to begin design work. I know probably a month ago, she said that would be somewhere in the area of $150,000, but she said, in fact, they don't need that, that they can fund that themselves. So they're not going to be coming to us for some time now, but certainly, again, if this COVID event had never happened, they would not even be approaching us about any of that until she said she estimates 2 years from now.
Well, that's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Because I've been very concerned about this too.
Yeah.
I haven't been approached by any constituents because I haven't seen any, but I know that we are going to be in dire straits when it comes to next year's budget.
Yeah, she was very specific, and she said that they understood what was happening, and there is no way that they would come before the board and put us in that position at this time. So I certainly appreciate the spirit with which she's done that. Just for myself, I'm of the same mind that Commissioner Klusman and Commissioner Pierce are. I don't think that there's any long-term spending capital projects that I would be in favor of pursuing right now. We need to get through this and kind of see where we are. I know the state is talking about a huge budget hole of as much as $1 billion. And so we need to see how all this shakes out.
Yeah. Greg, have you had any conversations with the school district at all, K through 12?
No, I have not.
Is that something you're going to do?
Yeah, yes, it was on my, it was my intention to speak with Dr. Moody and also with Kevin Jones.
Yeah.
I would, just because of the relationship we have with them, I would expect that they would be as understanding and have the same response.
Good.
I've had conversations with Dr. Spalding, and didn't talk with Dr. Moody when I saw her specifically about borrowing money, but I just can't see that we're going to allocate millions of dollars for any project at this point in time. The only thing I have to say about, I just would not like, there might be something that we decide to spend $100,000 on, like the design of buildings or something like that might be really time sensitive, that would throw somebody back a year or two if we put some of the things off. But I don't want to tie our hands, because I have more faith in the county commissioners that are sitting here right now than to think that we have to pass something that would lock us down for a year or so.
Mr. Chairman, the intent of this discussion was not to tie our hands. It was just simply to let the public know our feelings and our understanding of the situation, and just give them a little comfort right now, because I think anything we can do to ease their minds is very important right now.
I agree.
I agree
Yeah.
with that. I
Well
certainly do.
said, and I appreciate you bringing it up, and I think we're all unanimous in that.
Thank you very much.
I think the last thing we want to do is to create a bad financial scenario, because we are in great shape financially. And I wrote Sunday that I believe that our economy here is strong, and we just need to be given a chance to have a fighting shot at this again. So is there anything else from the board? Craig, anything else?
No, I just appreciate you having the conversation.
Mike, anything from you?
No, I think I agree with what's been said by the other commissioners. I do think we have to kind of put the brakes on everything right now and see where we go with the economy. I do think that from when we first got on the board and several years ago, it was sort of a downturn, as we're in a different situation here. And I'm hoping that fundamentally the economy is still good and that we won't have a multi-year, slump. So I think just putting the brakes on everything. Maybe this is a good chance for us to reevaluate everything, give a little more time to look at some stuff. I like the idea of thinking about we have employees working from home now, and maybe if we can see some data of how that worked out, then maybe that's something in the future we can look at and not need as much space. Maybe we can reduce some of the things that we're thinking about doing at West End Plaza. Not only because, for this situation, but, I think we all should think about if we have this 100-year incident, or is it something's going to be popping up every few years, and maybe we should start thinking about, are we able to have more employees working at home to start with, so we won't have as much interruption for our citizens. So I think this will give us a chance to, like I said, reevaluate just everything really. And say, like I said, I'm in agreement with what everyone else said.
We all lived through 2009 going forward, and the economy was awful for different reasons. We actually had some financial problems with the economy at that point in time. And Commissioner Pierce and Commissioner Caskey were living through some of those times and serving during some of those really slow times. And they did a great job of getting us to where we are today. I personally don't think that we're going to be in a long-term slump. We may have 6 months, we may have as much as a year, but our economy is the best in the world. And I think that we are not in for dire straits, but I think we are going to have some problems in the next 6 months, maybe. But the sooner we can get people back to work, the sooner we can get this economy rolling again.
Yeah. I did receive a response from Leslie. And Leslie, I assume you're on here. I'll be in my view. Is Leslie on here? Yeah, there she is. So Leslie, there were a couple of items that you did bring up. Is this something that you want to talk about with us?
Well, we've been in the process of putting together 2 separate financings that were approved in the current budget. Both I consider to be small financings. One is to finance the fiscal year 2020 vehicles. The majority of those vehicles have already been purchased. So this is a reimbursement to the county so that the full hit for the purchase of the vehicles doesn't hit our expenditure accounts this year. It's been the county's practice to finance vehicles over a 3-year term. That loan would be for $1 million, and the board earlier in this fiscal year approved a declaration of official intent to reimburse. So that would be the first one. And the second one that we've been working on has two purposes because I can fit those together. And so it would be $1 million for Kannapolis City Schools. And I sent everyone an email, I think, or Carolyn sent that out to you, that would show the purposes that Kannapolis City Schools wants to use those funds for. They've also been moving along toward that, planning to do that this fiscal year. The other part of the financing would be $600,000 for the Dan Nicholas Park concessions stand. And I just would like to know if the board has a feeling. Both of those are small. The vehicles is over 3 years, and I would definitely recommend that we proceed with that one. The one for Kannapolis City Schools, I know they're counting on the money this year. And then, Dan Nicholas Park, I don't know how you feel about that. That's $600,000.
Wasn't the schools part of a required capital increase?
Yes. And the first part of the funding is they were doing a career technical education building a year ago, and we gave them money for that. And this is to finish it. That project hasn't finished, so it's to complete that project. And then they had some other repairs. I think the next largest sum is also going for technology, sort of like what Rowan Salisbury School System has done, purchasing the technology for students and teachers.
But back to those dollars were, when we increase dollars to Rowan Salisbury School System, there's also Kannapolis school increases that are required as well to match the percentage increase, right?
That's correct for current expense. We haven't always followed that policy for capital. Capital is based on each individual school system's current needs. And so each year when Rowan Salisbury Schools and Kannapolis City Schools submits their budget request, they usually have a capital portion also. And I think that Kannapolis City Schools request in recent years, has been in the millions. And last year we funded 1.3 million. And this year, the board approved during the budget process headed into this fiscal year, $1 million for them to continue some of their improvements.
Leslie, didn't you say that this allocation was to finish up a project that they've already got in process?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I would think it'd only be prudent for us to live up to what we committed to. I mean, I'm not laughing at $1 million because that's a lot of money, but at the same time, they're going through a tremendous growth down there, and I feel like that it would be irresponsible for us not to finish up what we committed to them for.
Yeah, I agree with Craig. I was able to go down and take a tour, and you're right, Craig, that the explosion of students because of all the growth coming up from Charlotte is, I mean, they're just cramming kids in everywhere they can.
So it looks like the only question then would be Dan Nicholas. How far along are they on that project? Jim, do you, you're our liaison to the Parks Board, any insight there?
They have the drawings, and we're going to present them. Well, I think they've already presented them to the board, haven't they?
They did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they were to the point of letting bids in the near future.
Well,
We have not received the bids yet, so the board hasn't voted on that part of the project.
I would
So
like,
is that, oh, go ahead.
I'd like to see the bids come in, and then at that point in time, we can make a determination based on what's going on here in the county, if we think we want to go ahead and move forward with it. I do know that when they did make the presentation, there were some things that I requested to be looked at and changes. So I'm sure that's probably why it hadn't come back as quickly as possible. But at the same time, if we're going to spend this kind of money, I want to make sure we get the finished product that we're after. But I'm kind of like what Commissioner Green said. There's some things that, it's already in the hopper that we just need to go ahead and move it forward before we vote to spend the money. At least we'll have the exact amount of dollars that we're talking about. And then based on what the economy is locally and how our sales tax projections are coming back in as to whether we can afford to do that project at that time.
All right, I'm all for that. Everyone else, we're not voting on anything, but anyone else have anything to add to that?
My question to Leslie is that the money, the 600,000 for the improvements, is that something we borrow, or is that something that just comes out of general fund?
That the 600,000 we're planning to borrow, that project is greater than 600,000. It's I think the budget is maybe 825,000, which also includes the architectural fees. But I think the way that finance will go about this is we'll release an RFP for the financing, and I'll give them two different numbers. I'll give the banks 1.6 million for both projects and 1 million, and have them give us quotes for both of those. And that way we can, you guys can decide which direction you want to go at a later time. I have sort of combined these projects because both have to go before the local government commission, receive LGC approval because they're construction.
That's good. With interest being 0 right now, what do you expect that you could borrow money for? And would there be a significant difference between that and what we've been able to borrow money for the last couple of years?
I think interest rates have dropped. So I expect to be able to get a great rate at this time. But, even one of the last financings we did, I think the last vehicle financing we did was less than 2%, the interest rate. So I don't know what it's going to be this time around, but I expect a great rate.
All right, if there's not anything else, last call, then we'll move on. Our next, this is, let's see, 6B, which would be back to Leslie to discuss a conservation easement. And I think we've also got on the meeting with us. There he is, Chris Sloop. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. Hope you are, Chairman Eds. Thank you for giving us some of your time today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Why don't you fill us in on what's going on?
The Soil and Water Conservation District has been approached by two separate landowners to pursue applications for conservation easements on their farmland. Those we will leverage two different pots of money. One of those pots is from the state of North Carolina through the Department of Agriculture, through their Ag Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. The other pot of money comes from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is an arm of the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. But these landowners wish to pursue these grant funds to put their land, put their farms under conservation easement, which will essentially use those funds to purchase the development rights off of the land. Mm-hmm. What this does is conserves that land for perpetuity. Those lands will not be able to be developed from now to the end of time. Along with that, they are asked to follow a fairly stringent conservation plan. Both of these farms already have conservation plans on them, which are being followed, but we will sort of take that up to another level and make sure that they're doing the right things on their land to make sure that it is productive from now to the end of time to the best of our ability. And through the federal application for the federal funds, they require for us to secure the county's blessing, since we will be using the county's FEIN number and DUNS number to file that application under the county's name. And that's essentially what we're asking for in both these cases.
Now, we've done this in the past, but
Yes, sir.
they haven't been in perpetuity though, have they?
One of those easements that the Soil and Water District currently holds 2 easements. One of those was funded completely through federal funds. That one is a perpetual easement. The other one is a term easement. It is for a term of 30 years. And that one was all North Carolina Department of Agriculture funds. So yes, we currently hold 2 easements, and they both came from 2 different sources of money. On these 2 easements that we're currently pursuing, we're going to leverage both pots of money in order to get the landowner the best bang for their buck.
Chris, a member of your board called me today.
Yes, sir.
And was saying that in these contracts, there is, even though it is not likely to be used, but if one of these tracts of land, let's say, was in the middle of an interstate coming, that the county commission could ask for through the courts that this easement be abated, and that if this land is so important to the county commissioners, or is so important to the citizens of Rowan County, that it could be changed. Is that your understanding?
It would be very difficult to change. And in most cases where instances like that have happened, normally the state will do all they can to avoid the easement property. And in that case, they may reroute the road to go around it. But if it's the best option in the interest of all the citizens, I think that from what I understand, yes, it can be reversed, but it's difficult.
Is this different than farmland preservation at the state level?
It is, Commissioner Klusman, it's a part of the same program.
Yeah.
What we're looking at for a farmland preservation plan for the county, those dollars to implement those plans come from the same pot of money. But these easements are to specifically purchase the development rights off of farmland to conserve it for perpetuity. That land will always be used from now on for the production of food and fiber for our citizens.
How many acres are we talking about?
One easement, we're talking about approximately 200. The other easement is approximately 150. Both of them located in western Rowan County.
Okay, I like to hear that, because with the urban pressure that we're going to start to get very soon, it's going to be really tempting to start developing, and I want farmers to have that option.
What we're getting into is the second or third generation away from the farm. Let's say that the farmer is now 75, 80 years old, and he does not want to farm anymore, or can't farm anymore. He can rent his land. He wants to see his land stay in agriculture. He doesn't want to see a solar farm on it. He doesn't want to see some other commercial venture on it. And he can get paid a small amount. What they do is they take these grants or easements, and they will take out the value of the land, and only they'll take the value of the land as a commercial piece of property, back out the regular land value. So they come up with then what they call the commercial value of the property, and they pay the current owner of that. And then they get an easement on the deed so that it is used. In the farmer's hope is that it would stay that way for years. Now Chris and I are getting into an argument here about whether something will ever come out of it or not, but as long as it's part of the contract, there's an attorney somewhere that could probably break it. So that's what we're looking at in these things is people that like farmland want to keep it that way, and just know that we're here for a limited period of time. And as Judy was talking about farmland preservation, you can have people that want to dedicate their land to preservation, but until you change the title, until you change the deed on land, you really can't change the way it's going to be used after you're dead. Your kids or your grandkids or whatever it is still will be able to control that land, and they'll do what they want to with it. So that's the thinking behind most of these things.
And I agree with Commissioner Green in that in both cases, the landowners wish to be able to see that land be farmland, both for themselves and for their children and grandchildren. And on one of these easements that we're dealing with the heirs, and the heirs are certain that that's what their father would want to have had done with the land. And that's what we're trying to assist these folks in doing is carrying out their wishes and utilizing these funds that are available to make them be able to do that.
Because I have seen too many farms just carved up because the siblings get into this fight about, no, our parents wanted it saved, and then the other kids say, oh, no, we want to develop it and get our share out of it.
Well, what we haven't talked about is inheritance taxes, which is destroying a lot of that. So what happens in the case where inheritance tax has to be paid? The kids can't come up with that money.
They'll be taxed on regular farmland at the rate that it is right now, because it's being, farmland is taxed at, Chris can give us a rate on that. It is not the regular commercial rate on most farmland. And my understanding is that tax rate will continue on.
Well, that's a separate issue. I mean, one of the big issues with farms around the country is the issue of inheritance tax. And so if this acreage is set into, I mean, we're using this, but it could be any large farm for that matter, could be set in perpetuity, but then when it's handed down to heirs, unless there's estate planning that's gone on,
Right.
then you've got a lot of acreage that is, I won't say stuck into farmland, that's not the right term, but you've got acreage that is designated forever to be used in farm, but no one that can afford to farm it. So Chris, I'm interested in your thoughts on that, because I don't have all the facts on this, but I understand that when you get into a lot of these inheritance issues, that the problem may not necessarily be as much development as it is bureaucratic hoops to jump through when it's moved from one generation to the next. Either the next generation doesn't want to farm it, maybe there's not a next generation, maybe the next generation's involved in other enterprise, or maybe they can't come up with the federal estate tax dollars that it takes to and I can't remember what the percentage is. We could Google it real quickly, but you know, I'm not here to make a political issue out of this, but that is a reality, and the reality is that a lot of farms are being caught up in this political jockeying over this issue of estate taxation. It's a very divisive issue.
Farmers have gotten pretty darn savvy when it comes to estate planning. You know, with my mom passing away just a couple of years ago, and my dad years before that, I mean, they did go in and they planned their estate so the farm could stay in the family. And, you know, you have to do that. But my concern is when you've got a farm that isn't in a preservation type of program like Chris is talking about, and you have, you know, a rural subdivision come right next door, the pressure to raise taxes on that land, and Jim, maybe you can help me out here, because I know we've got use value assessment for farmland, but when it used to be that if you had something of value come and develop right next to you, that took your land and put it into a development category, and that is where farmers couldn't afford to pay the taxes, the property taxes. And that's really where they got in a pinch as far as having to sell the property simply to pay the property taxes, because the taxes you cannot rent land, I believe, and pay those taxes yearly. And I saw many, many Wisconsin farms go like this. You know, for me to take land into perpetuity is something that our county, I believe our people want this, because we talked about this when we were branding the county, you know, that we are original. We've got, you know, our developed areas, and then we've got this incredibly beautiful land out in the west part of the county that really needs needs help to stay in agriculture.
Let's let Chris tell us something other than my opinion about how that contract reads.
Actually, to address what Commissioner or Chairman Eds alluded to, those farms, we're purchasing the development rights. So from now on, that land will be considered at the agricultural tax rate as it is right now. So those tax rates will always be reduced because that land will always be used for farmland. As far as the inheritance,
they're not going to necessarily be reduced. They're just going to stay at the rate that they're currently at.
Correct. Not reduced, but at the current rate, or the current agricultural rate, whatever that may be as time moves on. But the inheritance portion of that, the land still belongs to the farmer. they just removed the development rights off of whenever the easement goes on to it. So, you know, the land can still be sold. The new owner just has to accept the restrictions of the easement whenever they sign on the dotted line to close the property.
So in other words, what's happening, and I don't know that I don't remember if we've dealt with this before, but basically what's happening is the federal and state government is going to pay the current owner the value of that land if it was developed, to take away their temptation to develop that land. And in exchange for that, it's got to stay in farming forever.
That's correct.
I looked up the inheritance tax, and you know, unless there's gold on that land, I don't know that it will really affect these parcels, because the current exemption for estate tax is 11.58 million. So, and so you've got one piece of land you said is what, 250 acres?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, so
well, approximately 200 on one and approximately 150 on the other.
So those are probably not going to reach that amount of 11.58 million. So all we're really talking about is, you know, putting it in farmland in perpetuity.
As the Soil and Water District, our primary role in this is to assist the landowner in preparing their applications and then getting all the documents and everything executed. Also in perpetuity, a part of that is monitoring these easements to make sure that the terms of the easement are enforced from now on. So that's where we, as the Soil and Water District, as the arm of the local government, that's where we come in, and I visit these farms once a year, look at the property boundaries, the surrounding lands, and make sure that we don't have other landowners encroaching, or that the current owner we make sure that the current owner is abiding by the terms of the easement. Are there any other questions that I might be able to answer for you guys?
I'm good.
You know, the tough part of this is supporting our local agriculture, but also supporting free market. That's a tough balance to figure out, because there's no one on this board that doesn't hold our agriculture and farm community in great regard, and it's the largest part of our economy. But most of us are dedicated free market folks as well, and I see these down the road, and we always want to see whether it's land or capital put to its highest and best use, and we don't know what that will be in 5 years or 50 years or 500 years. So this is not a hard decision to help our agriculture community, but this ought to be a decision that we take with great caution and great responsibility, knowing that we're going to tie up 350 to 400 acres forever and ever and ever. There's good on that side, and then there's the challenge on the other side if you are and believe in the principle of highest and best use.
Well, Greg, isn't the bottom line really about property rights when it gets right down to it? And if a farmer and the family want the land to stay in agriculture for perpetuity, isn't that their right to do that?
Oh, no, that's a great question.
Well, the other part of it is if we develop everything, where are we going to grow our food? How are we going to feed ourselves?
These are not mutually exclusive questions, Judy. These are, you raise a great question. I'd like my other commissioners to weigh in unless you just want me to be the only house that gets toilet papered.
If you do, save some for me.
Yeah, say something. These two, this is, I want to say this got thrown on us an hour ago. So we're supposed to make this decision when we have little to no information. It's been thrown at us all of a sudden.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, on issues of forever. And so it's almost not fair. So anyway,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
It's Mike.
Hey, Mike.
So is there any reason we can't put it off till the next meeting to study the issue?
I think it got, our deadline was last Wednesday to add this, and then we got a call, we got it added this afternoon. I think this has been thrust at the agenda because there's some type of filing deadline. Now, I don't know if that's the deadline for this month or this 6 months or this year. Chris, maybe you could.
Yes, sir. I can clear that up for you. We have already applied for the state money on this, and the farm visits have been done by those folks out of Raleigh. The deadline to apply, and the way all of this works, we're asking for 25% of the dollars from the state, from NCDA. We're asking for 50% of the dollars from NRCS, the federal arm. Like I said, we've already applied, and we haven't been approved on the state level, but those farm visits have been done. The application deadline for the federal funds is this Friday. We just found out last Monday. As I said before, we did not. We have done this before, but in the past, we filed under the name of the Soil and Water Conservation District, but we did use the county FEIN number and DUNS number. As time goes by, we learn some things that were done correctly and other things maybe not quite as correct. And we were told last Monday that what was done in the past may not have been 100% correct, and that going forward that we should file under the name of the entity of the tax ID number that we're going to use, which is Rowan County. Yes, we have done this in the past, but it was listed in the name of the Soil and Water District. Going forward, the federal folks with NRCS are telling us that it needs to be in the name of Rowan County, and that's why we're coming before you to ask your support in this.
And when would the next filing date be?
It will be a year from now if we do not hit this this Friday deadline. We're talking Friday of this week when these two applications have to be submitted. If we don't hit that deadline, we're looking at a year from now before we can apply.
Chris, do you know when the last time we've approved one of these?
That would have been back in the early 2000s. We've been the term easement on the one farm that we hold was done when I first started with the Soil and Water District back in 2009. I think we closed on it in 2010. The one previous to that was done somewhere between the 2005 and 2007-8 time period. And that was the one that using the same federal funds as what we're asking for as part of this one.
Mr. Chairman, if there aren't any more questions, I'd like to make the motion.
I just have one question, if it's okay. The thing I'm looking at this is a program that has been put together by the federal government and the state government. That's what these guys do every day, day in, day out. I would find it hard to believe that they would implement some type of constraints on this property if it wasn't necessary. So what I guess I'm asking is, are we smarter than these guys to say, no, it has to be done a different way? Or should we step back and say, this is the program, we either support the program or we don't? There shouldn't be any back and forth about what we think as individual commissioners is the best way to move forward. And you know, the federal and state government are the ones putting up the money. So whatever they decide that they want to have as a requirement, I think we ought to respect that and say, okay, you guys put the program together based on the criteria that you think is best long-term and short-term. So should we not respect that and say we're either going to vote for it or we're not, and not try to change the parameters of how this thing was put together?
Well, I think if we, I think it is our job because they're asking us to approve it.
They're not asking, they're asking to use our number to receive the funds. They're not asking us to rewrite the program. That's what I'm saying. We either say, yes, we're going to go with this and let's see what happens down the road because they're the ones that put the program together, or we say, no, we're not going to do this. I don't think there's anything that we need to reach out and try to say that we have a better way of doing things. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, I'm just one commissioner, but you wanted us to weigh in, so I did.
So Chris, then tell us again, because my understanding, because again, we just got this, we were asked to approve this setup, and that's not what you're asking?
We're asking for the county to give us permission to use their, to route the funds through the county finance department and use the county's federal tax ID number and DUNS number to ask for these dollars.
Okay.
So from what you said earlier, we're not sure that they'll even be approved at this point?
That's correct. There's always the chance that these applications won't make it any further than the application itself after the visit. We think our chances are very good to get these dollars and put the easements on these lands because they're both they're strong applications. One of the primary things that the primary criteria that they look at is the percentage of the soils that lie on these farms, whether they're prime or unique farmlands for the state of North Carolina. In both cases, the percentage of those acres, the total roughly 350 acres on both of those farms, is over 80% of that land is prime farmland. To put that into simple terms, that means that is wonderful farmland. It's good for growing crops. It's good for growing our food. And that's what is really behind all of this, is ensuring that those lands that are productive can remain in production for food and fiber for perpetuity.
So my understanding is, or what I thought we're being asked to do, is approve the programming, but that's not what you're asking us to do.
We're asking for permission to run the funds through the county finance department, essentially is what we're asking for.
Okay.
And to use the EIN number, correct?
That is correct, Ms. Klusman.
So after this vote, there'll be it wouldn't come back to us for any vote in the future because we're not really approving any of the project. We're just a pass-through organization.
That's correct. The other small portion of this is that we would like to be able to use JD's services to close the easement, to use his legal services or the county's legal services to close the easement. And in the rare instance that the easement would ever be challenged in court, that the county would stand behind us and assist us in that. I don't know of any case. I know that there's no case in Rowan County where one's ever been challenged in court.
Why would it be challenged?
If somewhere along the way, let's say the current landowner did decide to sell and they sold the land, the new landowner decides that they want to ignore the provisions of the easement and do something on that land that that is not allowed within the verbiage of the easement, that it would be, we would try to rectify that through our own means. But if it came down to a point of being in court, that we would need legal services to assist us in backing us up on that.
Do these kind of things ever go through our land trust?
Absolutely. And that is where normally most of these end up going through. I did some research, and there's the land trust, or what used to be the land trust for Central North Carolina, now Three Rivers Land Trust. They hold easements on approximately 61 tracts of land in Rowan County, totaling to almost 10,000 acres. So easements almost identical to this are held by Three Rivers Land Trust.
And let me stop you there. Do those go through the county when that
they
is?
do not. The land trust actually holds the land trust.
Yeah, this is why I'm asking these. I've never seen one of these, and so my assumption is this is being brought to us for approval of the concept, but we've not seen it. Now, maybe Craig and Mike saw it back in 09. You guys came on, when did you come on, in 8? 08? 12? Oh, you came on in 12. So you've not seen it either. So Chris, he's typically come through the land trust and they don't need our approval, right? So then why is this coming through us and not the land trust? And then I'm done.
The land trust is sort of funneling these to the local soil and water districts and the local governments at this point, because they have used up their money. From my understanding, they used up their money on those large tract purchases along High Rock or along the Yadkin River last year. And their funding is extremely limited, since they put so many dollars in conserving that land along the river.
So if it goes through them, they would have a financial commitment.
Yes, and
where there's no
typically these they generally tap into different pots of money than what we're pursuing with these. And with these pots of money, they generally go through the local soil and water conservation districts.
Okay.
But there's no matching portion that we would be responsible for.
It would really just be in-kind services, Commissioner Green. My time to prepare the paperwork, and possibly Mr. D's time to review and do the closing, but no straight dollar funds will come from the county budgets on this. The landowner is also, in both cases, is contributing around 25%. Basically, they're giving 25% of the value of this in order to ensure that they're able to get. It's not like they don't have any skin in the game either.
All right, I'm sorry we had all these questions, but again,
I understand. I expected you to have quite a few.
Well, it just got added, and we really didn't understand what the request was.
And I apologize for being a late addition, but we didn't didn't find out until last Monday that we needed to get this routed through the county.
Normally, if it's something that we're all kind of up on, we don't mind adding something like this. But we saw that you did have an April 10th deadline, so we wanted to give benefit of the doubt. But we knew that some questions were going to come up, and so we're learning everything real time as we speak. So anyway, thanks for straightening us out on this. Commissioner Glusman, I think you have a motion.
Yeah, Chris, what's the name of the program again?
The North Carolina ADFP Trust Fund and NRCS ALE. Basically, I would say that we could call it the
I
Rowan
just
County
need it for
easement.
the motion. Is there a simpler way to say it?
I can type that into the chat here so that you have.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I can make the rest of the motion that says, you know, funds will go through the county finance department and.
There it is. It's on the screen, Judy.
I would suggest the motion to state that the funds for the NCDA, ADFP, and TF and NRCS ALE easements, the funding be flowed through the Rowan County Finance Department.
I can't see that. So Jim, you want to do this?
Well, Chris took it off, I think.
Why don't I, hold on a second. I'll make the motion.
If you can look at the bottom of your screen and click on the chat, it'll bring up a little window to the side.
So, Judy, did you find it under chat? All right. So
I've got it. If you don't, you have it, Greg?
Yeah. So we're making a motion to approve Rowan County's allowing Rowan County to be used to apply for the NCDA, ADF, PTF, and NRCS ALE easements. Will that do it?
I think that's right.
Okay.
Well, I would say it needs to be amended to use the EIN number too.
Okay, that's fine. Use Rowan County and their EIN number. There will be some in-kind help there through Jay and through Chris. All right, and Judy, you want to make that motion?
Yeah, we got a second already too.
All right, we got a second. All right, any further discussion? Chris, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, sir.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Again, thanks for your patience.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, moving on to board appointments. So Franklin Volunteer Fire Department, let me move my screen around here a little bit. Franklin Volunteer Fire Department, Mark for Fire Department Commissioners. Mark Sokolowski applied for reappointment for a 2-year term, and Gary Ingram and Mark Monroe applied for 2 seats that will become effective on vacant on April 30th. And so do we have a motion to approve these 3 gentlemen?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. JCPC, Stephen Johnson has applied to fill the remainder of an open seat for a general public seat on the JCPC Council. Motion to approve Stephen Johnson.
Have a question first.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me more about him since this is my committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, he's from China Grove.
Yeah, I got that part.
Yeah.
He's a police officer.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then I would say move to accept.
Okay, second.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, then Melissa Pierce submitted an application. Normally, she wouldn't be eligible for reappointment unless the board considers waiving the term. So do we have a motion to waive the 2-year term limit?
So moved.
And-
Second.
All right, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And do we have a motion to approve Melissa Pierce for the Nursing Home Advisory Committee?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 On the EDC, Derry Caldwell, Denise Hallett have both applied for reappointment, and Nicole Holmes Montangira has applied to fill a vacancy. So do we have a motion to approve those three?
So moved.
Second, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, Therapeutic Recreation Board, Pat Whitley applied for reappointment, but she's already served 2 terms, so we would need to make a motion to waive the 2-term limit. Do we have a motion and a second to do that?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And do we have a motion to approve Pat Whitley for the Therapeutic Recreation Board?
So moved.
In a
So
second.
moved.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All right. Guys, I think that's it. Aaron Church, anything?
No, sir.
Jay,
Motion to adjourn.
Leslie, anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Everyone take care of yourself. It's good to see you. We hope you're well. Wash your hands.
Yeah.
And, so we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.